an absolutely classic pool on the upper lid behind us. But before we get started with the fishing, I just wanted to talk for a minute about conservation aspect in this project. It's a not-for-profit, and over those 30 years, it's done an awful lot really for our Westcountry rivers, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So just purely on the FishPass side of things, we try and encourage all the money that goes to the landowners to actually be reinvested into the river to improve it for the anglers, which then come following on from them. But besides that, what we try and do at Westcountry Rivers Trust is be a bit strategic with the other projects that we actually have ongoing, and we try to deliver some work from those projects on the FishPass beats. So whether that's riparian work, whether it's gravel cleaning, whether it's gravel augmentation, which is putting gravels back in for the fish to spawn on, tons of other work as well. We basically just try and deliver it on the FishPass beats to boost up that work that we're already encouraging.
It's very much working with the farmers, so it's a win-win. So we get access to far more angling than we did before. Whereas, riparian owners get a bit more of a helping hand with the river. Everyone works together, and hopefully the rivers get healthy. And we'll show you today the results, because this river, I can already see about 5 different fish rising at the end of this pool, so I can't wait.
Right, so we've come to the tail of this lovely pool. We're raring to get going. We're ready and set up with a couple of drive-bys, but I'd always advise just taking a few moments to let the fish settle, because it's probably spooked a few when you've gotten to the tail of the pool. So we're giving it a few moments, allowing the fish to settle, and also having a little look and seeing what's going on, seeing if there's any rise forms going up on the pool there. And as soon as we kind of feel comfortable that the fish are back on the feed, we'll then start casting it.
Well, before we get started, we're just going to have a quick look at the tackle we use. And one of the nice things, James, is there's no one size fits all here. You can use all kinds of different gear, really. So I'm going quite traditional Westcountry short rod, 7.5 feet. But James, you're actually going long, and I'm intrigued to see that you actually fishing a double drive fly on it.
Yeah, so I'm going a little bit longer on the rod. It allows me a little bit of extra reach, allows me a little bit kind of extra when I'm actually mending the line, so comes in handy when I'm actually drifting the fly through. But I'm definitely going with double dry today, because I'm thinking that throughout the majority of the day there's not going to be many solid hatches, but there's going to be a lot of gnat kicking around, little mids just here and there doing what they do. And they'll tend to drop on the water and come off throughout the day. So I've got a little British snap to cover that. And then I've got my point fly here. And I'm starting with a little caddis because I've seen a few come off. But that's going to be the fly that I cut and change throughout the day, depending on what hatch is actually happening at the time.
Some beautiful looking pools in. We've just been trundling a slightly heavier nymph through. Actually, I have to admit the tactical substitution was James's, who put on one of these little tungsten beaded nymphs, and that's just the job. Beautiful, whoops, beautiful wild grayling, look at that, whoops. Eager to go back sooner rather than later. There we go. Thank you very much. Beautiful. Really spotty one, actually.
So, as you can see, I'm fishing quite a skinny bit of water here, and I've got a very, very long rod in my hands, which does bring a few challenges. It means you can't lob the flies like you normally would, and you don't have the freedom to move around as much. But what the extra reach does allow you to do is fish the water on the opposite bank drag free, and you can pick up a lot of fish doing that. Especially when you're in a small stream like this, you're quite likely to spook the fish in the feed line that you're stood in. So being able to fish on that opposite bank is paramount in catching fish. So what I tend to do, instead of doing the big lobs that you would normally see with your anything cast, I'll do my bow and arrow cast instead, which is simply you hold the rod out with one hand, you hold the flies with your other hand, and you draw it back like you would a bow and arrow, and then you let it go and the nymphs fire forwards. And I'll quickly demonstrate that for you here, which is a perfect place to do it, because also we've got all this overhang, so the bow and arrow gives us that ability to pop the flies underneath the overhang quite nicely without popping it up in the trees, and I think I might have missed the take then.
So just going to pause quickly to show you some of the flies and leaders and tippets that we use typically here. And James, ballpark figure I think for these sort of waters, quite often you're dealing with 14s, 16s, 18s, quite small flies. Common thing I find as a guide is people bring flies that are a little bit large.
Yeah, that's quite often the case down here, that you're going to want to fish these small flies. A lot of the fish in here, they're not going to be huge. A lot of the things that are going to be eaten on are going to be quite small as well. So you want to accurately imitate what they're feeding on. So you tend to go for a little bit smaller down here. The only kind of time where that's not the case is if you come down in early June and you get a big mayfly danica hatch, then you can throw on something big and horrible. Or maybe if they're on hoppers, then you can try something big and foamy in September. But for the most part, it's going to be those smaller dries and nymphs which will cover most of it.
You kind of never leave home without some little emergers, some clink hammers, and some little tiny bead heads. Really, it seems to be a common thing. Yeah. And just to give you a little rundown of lines, so we've got tippets of sort of 2 to 3 pounds, as low as that. Tapered leaders all round really. I'm using like a 9-foot tapered lead for the short rod, but actually James, you've got quite a nice long 15-foot leader for presenting the 2 fly.